on March 9th, 1919, in Honolulu.
What time?
Time of day?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
You have no idea. Please describe your parents, brothers, and sisters.
My father came from Kona. He was born here in Kona in 1871. His father had come to Kona in 1850, and my mother was born in Honolulu. Her grandfather had also been born in Honolulu. Her side of the family had come to the islands the same year in 1850. There were, both families were from England. My grandfather, Greenwell, came here in 50 and was in the merchant business. And then they became ranchers. My father was a rancher.
What language was spoken in your house?
English was spoken in the house. My father could also speak Hawaiian, though, very fluently.
Was there anybody else that could speak Hawaiian in your family?
No, unfortunately, I never learned. There was not the need for us knowing Hawaiian at our age, because everybody spoke English then.
Where in Kona did you live during the 30s? Please describe the house.
We lived in this house. The house was built in 1912, and this is the house that the family lived in. We're in the land of Kealakekua. This is the Ahupua of Kealakekua.
How old is this house, approximately?
1912, it would be now 77 years old.
What kind of discipline did your parents use with you when you were growing up?
Aaron, you're going to talk to me loud.
Oh, okay.
Well, I think compared to today's discipline, it was a lot more severe. And of course, there weren't the outside influences that distracted us, but I remember feeling the belt across my okole.
Did they ever scream at you?
No.
Oh, they did? What religion did you practice during the 30s?
We were Episcopalians. Our church is that church that's on the road up to Kona School.
What did they, what was their, what did they teach you in that certain religion?
I think probably one thing that was more noticeable today as you look back is the respect for each other, respect for family, respect for the people around you, the Ten Commandments, which of course are the same rules that all peoples of all religions live by. It's the only way you can live in a community.
Do you know
and be able to live in a friendly manner.
Do you know where this religion originated?
Somewhere down in the eastern Mediterranean.
What kind of things did you talk with your friends during the 30s?
You know, in the 30s we had radios. There's not too much that we got involved in outside of our communities. One thing that did start being a very important part of anything any of us discussed as we approached the 40s, particularly 37, 38, and 39 was the war in Europe and eventually how it might affect us here. So the war was a topic in the latter 30s. The early 30s, everybody was having kind of a tough time, and this talk was mostly very local kind of things, family, community, the grass growing on the side of the road. They still complained about the problems of the roads then. But things like the Kona District Fair got people all moving, and that became quite a topic during a certain period of the year. Community things became important. how your basketball team was doing against another. There were different athletic leagues through Kona, about 9 of them, and they all played against each other, so this was something that was talked about. There were those topics were mostly local until the war came in.
Did you ever worry about being drafted for the war?
Yeah, I took my, all went to Hilo, a whole busload of us, and took our pre-induction physicals, and the only one of the whole busload that went in was someone who wasn't involved in agriculture. The rest of us were all involved in agriculture and were deferred as a result of that.
Can we stop for just a second, Aaron? Why don't you move forward a little bit? Keep coming a little bit more. And move in a little bit.
Roll 'em. What?
We're still rolling these in.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, that's
Oh.
all right.
Yeah. Go to the last door to the right and go straight back to the bathroom closet.
All the way straight?
Right to that corner of this room.
Okay.
Yeah. Then go right back.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go from where we left off.
When you were a teenager, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I want to be a rancher. I had grown up with that goal, a hope that I would come back here to Kona and work on the ranch.
How did you get associated with the county, like a councilman job?
I guess probably my involvement in community. I was at one time, early days, I was appointed to the Kona Hospital committee. The hospitals at that time were run by the county, and the county appointed the committee members, and I guess that was the beginning of my relationship with government, and I was involved with the Kona Civic Club, which is like a chamber of commerce, and through all of these relationships I became interested in government as an extension of my community involvement.
What kind of work did you do in Kona during the 30s?
Well, I didn't come back until 1938. September of 38 is when I returned to Kona after being away at school and high school. And I came back with the intention of going to university, and like a lot of people who come to Kona, once you get here, you can't leave. So I've been here ever since 1938.
Did you ever get married, and when, and to whom?
Married in 1946, in July of 46, the 13th, which wasn't a Friday. And the girl I married was from Iowa. She worked in Honolulu, and she happened to be the sister-in-law of a very good friend of mine who lived here in Kona at times.
Did you have any children, and how many, and where are they now?
There are 3 children. Meg Childs is the oldest, Nick Greenwell, and Bambi Revita, and they're all here in Kona.
What do they do for a living, the 3 of them?
Nick runs the cattle portion of the ranch, and Bambi, my youngest, is running the office of Kalakikua Ranch Center, KR Center up here. And that's her job, and she does the office stuff along with Taki Remoto for the ranch. My older daughter, who used to take care of that, is taking care of a young grandson. Equally important a job.
Do you think the changes that have taken place in Kona since the 30s have been good or bad?
They've been good. When I came back in 1938, I played on the Captain Cook Pirates basketball team, one of those athletic groups that I spoke of earlier. Of that group, where there must have been 10 or 12 of us, Today, there are only 4 of us still in Kona. The rest of them had to leave Kona because they weren't the job opportunities for them. And those of us who remember the 30s, I think, are concerned about the lack of job opportunities here because we've seen so many of the people here in Kona leave and go elsewhere. To Honolulu, there were a lot of people in the early 30s when the coffee prices were very bad. They went to places like Pahala. There's quite a community of Kona people in Pahala and in Nalehu. The stability of sugar was a lot better than the stability of coffee. Coffee at that time, I think, was around 3 cents a pound for cherry, where today I think it's around, what is it, 87 cents a pound. Tremendous difference. But we saw so many people during those years leave Kona because of the lack of job opportunities. And so anything that happens that creates new jobs, I think you'll find a lot of us who've been here a long time are all in favor of. Because we'd like to see, now it's our grandchildren that we'd like to see stay. And a lot of the people then lost their children to jobs elsewhere. They eventually, when coffee got even worse, left and went to live with their children in Honolulu and elsewhere.
What did you do for entertainment during the evenings in the 30s?
Went to the movies. Aloha Theater had 3 or 4 shows a week. It cost 15 cents, and a bag of Simoy cost 5. We lived it up in those days. Movies, older people, parties. Of course, there was no TV. Radio was listened to some extent. A lot of people talked. We learned to converse.
What type of movies were shown at these movie theaters?
The Aloha Theater had first-run films. They were the newest. The Kona Theater up here usually had Abbott and Costello second-run shows and westerns.
Were any of these movie theaters very good in seating and personal service, as I can
Yeah,
say?
no, they were both of them had been built just prior to the Depression. The Kona Theater was built in 1928, and the Aloha Theater was built in 1931. And both were maintained very well during the time that they were used. The service was good. I don't know, there was no popcorn and those kinds of things in those days. Occasionally there was a rat that scurried across the ceiling. They were in really, they were nice theaters, and really not too old, because as I say, they were built 1929 and 31, so in the 30s they were almost brand new.
Did the Depression affect Kona?
Drastically. Coffee prices went down, as I said earlier, to around 4 cents a pound for cherry, and it was the only thing that kept people going at that time in coffee were Captain Cook and American factors that offered financing to the farmers. And then they wiped off a lot of those debts later. That kept a lot of the farmers going. Things were bad everywhere at that time. If you were in the city and you didn't have a job, everything, food was difficult to get, it was expensive. Here, at least in the country, you grew a lot of the things that you ate, so that helped a lot of these families exist.
Was there any other?
Stop for just a
Oh,
second
okay.
while the truck goes by.
This is a really nice house.
This house is all double wall construction. The downstairs was built in 1912. It cost $4,000.
Yeah. Now all the houses are like Rumley kind of houses, and they're only built with one
Yeah.
Well, these kind of things. And they're really cheap.
Upstairs we put on 1919.
Okay, let's keep going.
Yeah, let's move this. Okay. Was there any other industries in Kona besides coffee?
Coffee. There was coffee and ranching. I was just thinking of sugar, but sugar folded in Kona in 1926. That was the end of Kona Development Company, where the mill was in Loa. There were no other industries other than coffee and ranching didn't hire too many people, although it did then a lot more it does now, because it took longer to get to work, and that, but the coffee people had a terrible time during the Depression here in Kona. It was devastating. It was just unbelievable the number of people that stayed here through that period.
Did you have any neighborhood or family parties, and please describe them?
Most of the parties were card parties. We'd play bridge, this kind of thing. The parties at New Year's or times of like that, Christmas parties, they were New Year's, after Kona Inn opened in 28, 29, New Year's parties were nearly all held down at Kona Inn. Kona Inn became almost a club for people of Kona. We'd go down there on Sundays after church and play tennis. The young ones would, and the older people would play cribbage or bridge or something like that. New Year's was Kona Inn was a spot with dancing and a lot of gaiety. But it was a great place. And also, we'd meet people from all over this island. There were a lot of people from Hilo that would come over. The other parties were probably monthly. Someone would have a party or something, dinner party with bridge afterwards. There would be church groups that would meet. The Christ Church had a guild, a women's guild, and they had monthly meetings, some of them with social meetings of cards and that kind of thing, and teas. There were small, a lot of them families, some of them just groups of getting together for birthdays. Birthdays were always a great thing. Everybody had birthday parties.
Did you ever eat out at restaurants, and was there any restaurants in Kona during the 30s?
There were quite a few restaurants. Tashima's was a place, Monago's occasionally. When we used to ship cattle down at Kailua, we'd have breakfast down at Ocean View Inn, which used to be Rose Chong's. But it wasn't the place we didn't go out to eat very often. Except on Sundays, as I said earlier, we'd go down to Kona Inn and that, but you didn't go out too often to eat.
What kind of music did you hear during the 30s, and how did you hear it?
Radio, phonograph. Same thing. My father used to complain about my playing my records in those days, as much as I complained about my kids playing today's music loud. There was a lot more local Hawaiian type music. New Year's Eve and Christmas Eve, there'd always be some serenaders who would come up to the house and would sing. It was great. None of that happens anymore. We've gone from a small community into a big community, and a change in numbers changes sort of the relationship, I think, within communities.
Can you sing one of your songs, one of your favorite songs, if you're able to?
No, I'm not a singer.
And that's the second time someone said that.
We haven't gotten anybody yet to sing a song.
I don't think Minoru will either.
Okay, I'm gonna pass number 6 because you already answered about the movie theaters. Did they have any contest, beauty, sports, and coffee picking, etc. in Kona then?
Sports. As I said, there were 8 or 9 different community sports associations. And they had, during the winter, there was basketball and there was baseball. Those are the 2 sports that were played. There wasn't a track up here. Captain Cook, Kona had stopped playing football somewhere around the early 30s, and football was not a sport in Kona. And when football was renewed, I was surprised at some of these older people in the community who were all up there watching football. Why are they there? Oh, long time ago they were real football fans. See, football was not played until somewhere around, I guess, 46 or so, when the coffee schedule was stopped. But during that period of the coffee schedule, going back to 31 or 32, there was no football. So none of the groups in these communities played football. But there was quite a schedule of games between all of these groups. So sports were a real community program. There were little leagues, little, intermediate, and senior leagues. And this kept us all busy. This is one of the things that also used to keep us busy at night, basketball particularly. What is the other part of that question?
Beauty and coffee picking, etc.
I don't recall coffee picking. There might have been beauty. There weren't too many. I don't remember too many contests of that kind.
Could you explain to us what you mean by the coffee schedule? How did that come about? What was the purpose of that?
The legislature tried to find a way to help the coffee farmer in harvesting his coffee. And the regular school schedule kept the kids in school at the time the coffee harvest was going on. And to assure the families in having their children back picking coffee, the schedule was changed from its regular schedule to a summer vacation schedule that started around the middle of August to the middle of November, which was theoretically the time of year that most coffee was being harvested. The unfortunate thing is that it didn't always fall within that period, and so sometimes it would have to be extended a little bit into December. But it was a boon to the families in having their children back on the farms picking. Along with time, the attitudes of kids also changed, and they didn't do quite what parents wanted them to do, and none of them particularly cared for picking coffee. And so when there became a choice as to whether they wanted to go back to the regular schedule or stay with the coffee schedule, the vote was for going back to the regular schedule. It fitted in better for those who were going on to college, graduated from Kona and that. and from all around, it just seemed a better thing to do, to go back to regular schedule. That also brought back football, which was a very popular sport in the old days in Kona, and I found through talking to some people that Kona School almost had a pro team. There were some people in Kona that scouted Kau and other places for the best players, then found homes for those people in Kona so they could play on the Kona team. Kona had some damn good teams.
What was the best football team in Kona during the after 1946 or before?
There was only one football team in Kona.
There was.
Kona.
Oh.
Yeah. It was a senior sport, and there were no other.
Oh, I thought there was another team.
No.
Did carnivals ever come to Kona during the 30s?
Oh yeah. One of the things I remember probably was just before, as a kid, there was a rodeo that came to Kona, and that was it was in a pasture just this side of the road that goes up to Kona School, and riding, bucking steers and horses and things. And that was a traveling rodeo. It wasn't a local rodeo like today we have rodeos of local people being involved. These were all part of a traveling rodeo. The Kona Civic Club years ago had a fair up at Kona. It eventually was continued by the Kona Lions Club, and that was an annual event in the old days. There were many of those amusement rides and things that would come up with E.K. Fernandez shows and that kind of thing.
How many carnivals came to Kona on an average year?
I would imagine one a year.
Did they have parades back then?
Yes, 4th of July was a great day for parades. The parade, in fact, there are quite a number of pictures of parades through Kainaleu during that period. There were some canoe races started in Kona in 1934 again, after being put aside for 30 or 40 years, and there were parades that went along with the canoe races. But 4th of July was a great one. I can't think of any other periods of time when there were parades.
Was fireworks legal in Kona during the 30s?
Everything was allowed. Lots of people ended up like this.
Was there a newspaper in Kona during the 30s?
I'm not sure. The Kona Echo was published in Kona by Dr. Hayashi, not the president's father, in Honolulu back on in the 1890s, and it was still being published up until probably the early 30s. There were then other attempts, I think, to keep it going, and that kind of pooped out. I would say by the end of the 30s there were no local papers. Some of them were renewed later, probably in the late 40s. Was
there a radio station in Kona during the 30s?
No, the radio station in Kona came in about 73. There were only three radio stations in those days: KGU, KGMB. I guess two. Those are only two we got from Honolulu. And you didn't have very much choice in those days.
What was shown on, what was heard on these stations, these two stations from Honolulu, basically?
Some stations had a lot of Hawaiian music on them. Some in the latter 30s had the popular music of the time. There were no straight news stations in those days. There would be news at noon and in the morning and in the evening, and music in between. There were a lot of personalities who had their own programs. KGU had, oh, I can't think of his name. It just slipped me. But they would buy an hour or 2 hours time on the radio and then go out and get their own advertisements and that. And they had a good pattern, like some of the people that are on radio today. That type of programming started in those days.
What was the major source of news in Kona? How did people find out about what was happening in the world?
Radio in the 30s. Well, not generally in the 30s. Radio became a source, let's say, after 36. That's when there became more radio. 1934, Kona Line Power started. So there was no electricity in Kona prior to Kona Light and Power's distribution of electricity in Kona. And radios were expensive, and the batteries you had to buy for them were expensive. So radios really didn't start to become something until after the electricity was generally distributed in Kona, which would mean that probably 36, 37 is when most of the people here started getting radio. Before that, it was newspapers. Newspapers came on the boat. The boat came in twice a week. And so nearly all the papers you got were fairly old, but you, in a lot of instances, hadn't heard anything before that. And I think it was great. You anticipated what was going to happen. Today, you almost see it happen. There's no anticipation of things. It's a great comfort in a way, not knowing what some things are happening as immediately as we do today. I think that's one of the things that made life quieter and a lot more community. We're now no longer small communities. We're all an instant part of the whole world that surrounds us.
Was this electricity reliable, and how much did it cost during the 30s?
Kona Light and Power was known to have at one time, the highest electrical bills rates in the United States. The reason was that they had to go so far to each customer. That was one of the reasons. The other was that they used diesel fuel, which is about one of the most expensive fuels for fueling, generating power. And this is why our rates were high.
Was what kind of sports did people play outside of school?
Of course, a lot of that depends upon age. Baseball, it's going to be little kids who play tag and that kind of stuff. But softball was very popular. A lot of these here at that time, there wasn't an awful lot of, in the early 30s, that kind of thing for kids to do. They all had to get home to help on the farm. Or even the rest of us, we would come home and we'd go horseback riding and stuff. But there weren't too many organized things for us to do. We found our own things to play with. You could take in those days a piece of wood and hack it on one side and do something else. God, that'd be a wonderful toy to play with. Today you've got something that comes from the store.
What were some of the popular toys back then?
things even like those shovels and spades and things like that, and digging around. You didn't necessarily always plant something, but you could put it around in the soil. Pot guns, bow and arrow type things. Any little trucks. Trucks were always fun. Pushed them around the dirt and played in the dirt. Best place to play was in the dirt. Everybody, and two of those days, everybody went barefooted, so dirt and mud were great things to play in.
Was there any kind of slippers during that period of time, during the 30s?
Slippers?
Yeah, slippers.
Oh yeah, but I never wore shoes to school until I got into the 7th grade. We used to go barefooted all the time. And you couldn't go to school in slippers. You had to wear shoes to go to school. Slippers were almost something you just wore around the house. They were not a public, they're not for public attire. Unless you were into the beach or something like that.
Was it difficult to own a car during the 30s? And did you own one?
Our family had one, a Studebaker. Cars, a Ford cost something like, a Model T cost, that's going back to the 20s. Probably you could get a car for maybe let's say from $800 to $1,000 to $1,200 for a car. Well, that was a lot of money in those days. A lot of people here in Kona in 1929, when coffee prices hit the ceiling, got cars in anticipation of the price staying up, and the price in 30-31 just dropped to the floor, and a lot of those cars were repossessed. But it was the beginning of when cars became popular